Hi, Rika.
Thank you.
How are you?
Hello, Terry. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Delighted to get to chat with you, apart from our chatting in your Writers Critique group. You're an architect, artist, designer, writer, interested in people, spreadsheets, history, and cognitive dissonance. Should we have a chat about them and then move on to your writing?
Multitude of things.
A lot, there's a handful there.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Architect, is this your profession?
That's what I trained as. Yes. So, yes, I studied architecture, and that's what I came over to England to study. And I've been working in the industry for about over 20 years now. In various capacities in the construction industry as an architect or as a design manager. Yeah, I've enjoyed what I've been doing.
Does it take many years to be trained as an architect? Is it just like a degree course and then further other training?
Yes, there are different stages. So you do a degree, you get qualification, and then you do your postgraduate, you get a second qualification called the Part 2 RIBA qualification, and then you do another year out in a practice, and you do a case study and a professional exam, which is the Part 3, which qualifies you as a chartered architect. Yes, so it's a long process. It's almost as long as studying medicine sometimes.
Well, I suppose there's a lot of safety aspects involved. If you're going to design a building, you don't want someone who's had like a 5-minute training course. You would hope that they've had a lot of.
Well, I think the reason behind that is because the whole design process, anyway, in the real world takes quite a bit of time from start to go on site. So a lot of our buildings, sometimes the whole design process could be about a year. Engaging with the clients, engaging with the public, other aspects of it. And then when you go onto site, it takes about at least a minimum of a year to 2 years to actually build it, depending on the size of the project. So I think it's about taking the time to actually get the design right. So we usually, in college, you usually have like at least about 2 projects every year, design projects, they call them. So over the 3-4 months, you work on that, you get critiqued on it, you improve on it, you might throw it all away and then start afresh. So yes, so that's how the process works. Yes,
goes through various stages of approval.
That's something I was interested in from the time I was little. I used to draw all the time. In fact, I think I drew on all my mother's dining chairs and walls and everything. So it was very much in me, and which is one of the reasons my dad, he's an engineer. He's the one who introduced me into architecture. He said, you can draw well. You might actually enjoy studying architecture. So he's the one who actually guided me into that profession. And so I still do dabble a bit in oil paintings or charcoal sketches when I have the time. That's something which I find very, very soothing to do. Yeah.
And so with the writing as well, is that you're more of a writer than an artist, or you combine both?
Well, the writing is something very new. It's something which I've had as a secret ambition throughout my life, and I've always written stories throughout, but I've never taken it beyond. So this is something I wanted to explore in the last. So this last year is where I kind of put a lot more effort into it and actually dedicated some time to sit down and actually put pen to paper. And yes.
And one of the other talents, spreadsheets. Is that you're talking about Excel?
That's a very, very sad side of me. Whereas I love to love organizing. That's what probably makes me a good design manager, because I like organizing everyone's time or the project and putting things together and setting out tasks for people. And so I do love Excel. There was a time a friend of mine and we actually worked out the whole program for the practice we worked for, and so the two of us sat down and worked out all the glitches and tried to work out a specific spreadsheet for the company to use, and that's how we bonded as best buddies. So it's a sad sort of thing which I really enjoy. That's just
So you know how to do pivot tables and lookup tables and things like that, transitions. And...
I've not really done much with tables so much, I suppose, but yes.
Cognitive dissonance. I would pronounce that properly. Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. I think that's just a really fun word, isn't it? It's a nice. What I like is to understand people and what makes them tick. Why are they? You know, what makes them do different things? How come some of their actions don't reflect their words? You know, what that kind of inconsistencies I quite like understanding or reading about, and it just intrigues me. So it's part of the whole idea of storytelling. When you find something which is curious to you, it doesn't quite make sense. You know, how do you rationalize it? And what's the story behind it? Who actually started this line of thinking, and how did it change along the way?
I suppose they're all elements of a writer's toolbox, aren't they? You've got to be a bit of a psychologist, a bit of a sociologist. You're looking at what motivates people, building up the characterizations within the story.
Definitely, I think yes. There's a lot to think about. People are quite complex, isn't it? The way we act and behave, and we're quite capable of a multitude of things which we're unaware of till you actually put to the test.
Yeah. So just linking with your writing, obviously we're in the same writers' critique group that you've created. You've written this story. Do you want to, about Henri's tale? Do you want to give us an outline? What's that about?
Sure. It's like early stages. It's a concept idea about Henri, who's this little frog who is eager to explore the world outside of the pond. And she has these lovely friends who are dragonflies who she starts this journey with. So this story was actually inspired by a bedtime story my dad used to tell us. And it was a story he was told by his grandmother. So it's a story which has come down from generations. It's probably an old folk story somewhere. And it resonated quite a lot with me. And I kind of wanted to take that story and build it into something which resonated with kids and which kind of inspired them to think about exploring and being themselves, move outside of their comfort zone. And
I've read the early draft that you sent to me. My granddaughters absolutely love the story. I think it's delightful. I think it's no pun intended, but it's got legs. I think it'll be a success.
I'm
so
glad you think so.
Have you seen that? You filmed the Paul McCartney video? His song from the 80s, the Frogs chorus. We all stand together.
Oh, I haven't.
No,
I must watch that.
it might be worth looking at just for the characters of the frogs, dancing about on the lily pads and things. Beautiful image. When this is completed, do you intend to go down the self-publishing route, or are you actively looking for a publisher? Have you decided? Have you got to that stage yet?
I'm still on the fence with the two ideas. So I do want to explore going with publishers and see, but also at the other end, I want to research, because again, this is the first book I'm doing. So I want, and this is like an experiment to figure out, what other avenues down which I can take. I have spoken to some wonderful illustrators who are quite keen on working with me, and that will be also a really fun direction to go. So we would work together, and I have a lot more autonomy if I was to self-publish. So there is that advantage. And then go with a publisher also has its wonderful advantages as well, because they have so much more experience with children's books. They would know what the market's like. They would know the target audience, and what I need to probably do to make the story better, and appeal to a wider audience. So I'm still at an early stage with that, because I've just got the book to a decent stage as a full manuscript, which I think still needs some work on it. But yes, I think it's close enough there.
Okay. You're thinking about looking at the audiobook option. Obviously, children's stories, they're meant to be read out loud, for the delight, when you're giving tucking the kid, can't say it again, tucking the kids into bed for nighttime, reading them a story.
No, that's actually a really brilliant idea. I still remember doing an interview with another children's writer, Mr. Z, and we did a little reading of his work, and I thought that's actually quite a good idea to do an audiobook as well. I do remember my nephews being so fascinated with the CDs of a book, and towards the end of it, he could recite the whole book without even looking at the page. Like I remember sitting with him reading the book and going towards the end of the book and turning the last page, and then my nephew continuing, he started reciting the credits from the CD. So I think it sticks a lot in children's minds, the audio aspect of it. So I think that's a really good idea to do that.
So another possible market, I didn't know till a few weeks ago, a friend of mine has got this virtual reality headset you put on, and he had to sort of make sure that there was a clear space around me, because you set like a barrier within this virtual reality headset. But I watched a cartoon. It was a very simple story. It was about a hedgehog. He lived alone, and he was lonely, and he kept looking at outside of his tree for any friends. And there was a passing crowd of balloons who came in and sort of had a little dance with the hedgehog, and he was delighted, made friends with these balloons. But unfortunately, because he was a hedgehog, he burst a couple of the balloons, and the other balloons sort of ran away in horror. And then the hedgehog was very sad. And he sat and he waited and he cried. And he said, I'm sorry. And the balloons eventually came back, but they sort of wrapped him around, bandages around him so they couldn't burst them. But that very simplistic story, but seeing it in this, magical headset, I think that's a massive big potential market for children's stories, for simple stories. It brought me back to childhood, these beautiful images, very simple but powerful themes, of sadness and loneliness and unintentional hurt from this little tiny tale.
No, I know what you mean, because we have those 3D goggles for architecture and construction. So you can actually model your whole building in 3D, and you can walk through your building with these glasses. It is quite disorienting sometimes too. You do get dizzy, but it's a fantastic tool to explain, especially to clients, how their space would look like when they're walking down these steps, or they're walking into this room to an auditorium, and you get to see this visualized rather than on a 2D piece of paper. That says,
you can see, you can wonder what's going to happen maybe in 5 years' time, as the technology advances, where the storybooks are going to come to life. You open the page and a hologram's going to appear from there.
A bit like how they did it in Harry Potter, isn't it? I remember.
The moving newspapers and things.
Moment. I've been speaking to a few really interesting children's writers. There's Bob Zaslow, who's done a few lovely books. And I spoke to a lady called Mo O'Hara, and so she's done books on little dinosaurs. And there was, I can't remember whether it's Romeosaurus and Juliet Rex. So So play on the whole
Yeah.
Romeo Juliet series with the two dinosaurs. It's really lovely. But my nephews do read quite a lot of books, and I think my older nephew is reading the Little House on the Prairie series,
Oh yeah.
which is the Laura Ingalls story.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, I do love watching different remakes of Cinderella. In fact, I think there's a new one out on either Netflix or Amazon just this year. I think it's been written over 500 times, probably across the world. But you know, these fairy tales and children's stories, they all have some lovely messages to come across, isn't it? And they all have that magical element that we all want to, you know, relive and, you know, go back to our childhood and be like, oh, this is amazing, you know. I'd love to have a fairy godmother turn up.
So what's the plans then, Rika? You're going to get this one published, and then hopefully you're going to make it into a series, Tales of the Riddick.
I would love to make it in. So it's Henri's Tales, and this one is Operation on Frog's Legs. So it is going to be a part of a series, because I think Henri is a natural explorer, and she does want to go places and see things and come back and report to everyone about everything. So that, yes, I do envisage a few more books after this.
Okay, I'm going to look forward to reading them.
I hope so. I haven't started the others yet, but this one, this one hopefully will get published within the next year. I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it's got the quality there. As I say, I really enjoyed it.
I think what has been wonderful so far, this whole, because like I said, Terry, I've only been seriously, taking writing seriously, I must say, for the last few months, this year, last 4 to 6 months. And the people in this community are absolutely wonderful. I don't think I've come across more supportive people in any other industry, really. And talking with different writers, I think, helps us grow, helps us become better people, and just, you know, the kind of understanding you get, the kind of genuine warmth is just absolutely wonderful to be a part of. Yes, and I think if I was to give anybody any advice, is to always follow. If you have a dream, follow your dream. Find, you know, it doesn't matter whether you make a success of it or not. If there's something you genuinely want to try it, because there's nothing worse than living with a regret.
True.
No, absolutely. And that was one of the first writers I actually interviewed was Joseph Carabas.
Oh yeah.
And he was fantastic. He's one of the most knowledgeable writers I ever met. It's really lovely. But best advice he gave throughout that whole thing is, you know, just write. Write every day. Even if you don't want to write. He said this, even if you don't want to write, start writing. I don't want to write today because, and then carry on why you don't want to write. It just gets you into that flow then, you know. You just have to get practice, and it's about practice, really, isn't it? If you take Malcolm Gladwell's idea about the 10,000 hours you need to put to become
an expert
better at something. I think there's legs to what he says, because, you know, it is about practicing and getting better at things, and you know, you improve your grammar, you improve your speech, the way you tell a story, or, you know, dialogue, whatever it is, just practice. And I think that applies to any industry, really.
I remember I've chatted a couple of times with Joseph Carabas, and he made me promise that I'd write for 15 minutes a day. And I don't know whether tweeting out comments on Twitter and Facebook, I don't know whether that counts as writing for 15 minutes, but I do more than I should do on those platforms.
Yes, and I think it's also important to have an accountability buddy. That was something which I think is so useful to have. There's this
Yeah.
lovely gentleman, Eddie Coleman, who is a playwright who has been also very supportive. And, I get a message from him from time to time saying, "Have you written today?" I'm like, "Yes, I have." So, sometimes you just need, if you don't, you can motivate yourself, but it does help to have somebody else
Yeah.
you are comfortable
Encouragement.
to
Yeah.
encourage, exactly, get
Yeah.
that encouragement. Yes.
It's good that you got that in place. It really is. You've got a website on Medium.
I do not. I have not. Oh, yes, I do.
Web
have
page
that.
on Medium, I should say.
Yeah. So it's a blogging site. I guess you can publish articles on it. And a lot of people write on it, which is quite a good tool, really. And I found that quite helpful because it was about getting practice in writing and practice in, putting myself out there. And lots of wonderful writers on it, so you have the option of reading lots of different articles and engaging in these articles. You just sort of build your writers community there. So they have Medium also has different publications you can publish too, rather than just under your own name. So you can there will be publications which do interviews for writers, or there'll be publications which do human interest pieces, or publications which do travel, and then you can write these articles and send it off to those publications, and they could publish it under their name. So it's quite a nice tool. I think it's quite similar to another tool which is called Quora. I don't know if you've heard of that. So similar way to publish your online blog.
Do you want me to add a link to that when I put out the edit of this video? A link to your Medium page and maybe your Twitter name as well?
That's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
I think because this time next year, when you're a major publisher, when Tales of the Riddick, Henri's Tales,
when I'm a bit more established.
When you'll have Netflix.
When I'm a bit more established, yes, then I'll have a.
Yeah, when Mr. Netflix will be knocking at your door and buying the film rights and the cartoon rights.
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah.
Actually, that would be quite fun if we can do like a cartoon for Henri, couldn't we?
Yeah, I can see it working.
Yeah.
Can we do this again then? Can we have another chat sometime in the future then? I know we're keeping in touch with the writers group. Yeah. Yes,
that'd be lovely. Because who knows the way in a year's time, what changed my mind, or if there's anything different which has happened in the year. Yeah. And hopefully my book will be published by then. We'll see.
I think it's got the quality. I don't doubt it. Yeah. Well, it's been brilliant chatting with you, Rika. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay.
It was really lovely chatting with you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay. Well, you take care then, Rika.
You too.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.